marketing tends to tap into that hole in our soul that Blaise Pascal talked about, that can only be filled by God. Pascal called it a God-shaped vacuum, and it sucks all kinds of things in. Calvin talked about us being idol factories. I've heard Paul Tripp talk about, us being glory hogs and the idolatry that we are prone to go after as our default setting. And so, I think that's what people need to understand is there's a spiritual component to marketing because it taps into needs, and it's the deepest need of our lives, and that is to be in a relationship with Christ, in a relationship with our Redeemer, and have that God-shaped vacuum filled by God himself.
Hit 'em with a little bit of dopamine to keep 'em looking every second. They'll be second guessing, trying to meet the expectation of the age of information. The simulation will be so convincing they'll forget that they're alive.
Hey, Walt, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you, John?
Doing well. It's good to see you. Thank you for being willing to come on this season of the podcast. I know many people who have tuned in to our podcast know who you are. They've heard you. We've had you on a number of times, but there are some people who might not know you. So why don't you just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, CPYU, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
sure. Yeah, so the simple answer to all that is I have a long history in the world of youth ministry, and actually after working in local churches for several years back in the late 1980s, we started this organization, Center for Parent Youth Understanding, and we exist basically to help youth workers and parents and grandparents and pastors and anybody else who cares about and is ministering to kids, wants to see them come to faith and grow in their faith. We're working to help them understand this cross-cultural mission field of our kids so that we can help our kids navigate culture to the glory of God. There's so many problems, choices, pressures, expectations that our kids face that are very different from the ones that we faced when we were growing up. So we're working to help people understand that and put gospel faithful, biblically faithful responses to those things so that we can effectively nurture our kids. So we've been doing this since late 1980s. 1989 was actually when we incorporated. So it's been several decades. It was the last millennium. When I think about it, it was a long time ago, and culture certainly has changed. So we carry on, and we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse. I've got a wife, Lisa, who 4 kids, 7 grandkids. So the grandkids have really ramped it up for me in terms of my passion for doing what we're doing here because they're facing all this stuff. And I think what we're going to talk about today is certainly a huge part of that. It's gotten bigger and bigger over the years.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, as I'm thinking, I've been in student ministry over 20 years, and I've said this before, but early on I came across CPYU, and just give a plug, cpyu.org. People need to check that out, but it totally just shaped the way that I did youth ministry and really specifically in how I partnered with parents. So very grateful for your work. And really one of the earliest things I read, I think, was Youth Culture 101, which isn't that the title of the book? Youth Culture 101?
Yeah, Youth Culture 101. That was the 3rd edition of that. It was called something else before.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm ever going to rewrite that because things change so quickly. So we put most of our stuff, as you mentioned, online at cpyu.org. So
yeah, but it was a massive book, maybe 400, 500 pages. I don't know. It was big, and you had a section on marketing and consumerism. And so as we were thinking about this season of the podcast, talking about dopamine, but specifically we want to look at 3 areas. One of those being kind of the marketing consumerism. We want to look at sexuality, and then also sports betting as well. Those are kind of 3 areas we want to zoom in on. And so today I brought you in to talk about consumerism and marketing. And as we were talking a little bit pre-recording, you have more content than what we can cover in the amount of time that we have. And
and I already apologize, John, since we're videotaping this, videoing it. I'm going to be looking at some notes because I'm always updating this stuff, and I want to be sure I don't miss anything.
Yeah, no, yeah. Look away at all those notes. That's not a problem. So yeah, why don't maybe just kind of big picture, help us think just kind of foundationally as Christians thinking about marketing. Any kind of introductory material to kind of ease us into
Yeah.
this would be helpful.
Yeah. So, a lot of times when I talk about marketing, people may be left with the impression that I think that marketing is evil. I don't believe that marketing in and of itself is. I mean, this is the way that we learn about things. You've told people about this podcast. We tell people about CPYU. The issue is, how we use it. What it is we're marketing, what it is we're putting out there, are these things that are good, true, honorable, and right? And then what are the methodologies that we use? Because there's a lot of manipulation. I mean, you've been talking a bit in the podcast about dopamine, and certainly in the world of marketing, there's a lot of manipulation that takes place, and there's a lot of research into how to manipulate people. So it's not just the content in terms of what's being sold, it's also the methodologies that are being used. And I think we may get into this a little bit later, but the greatest power of marketing that we have to understand as parents is not so much to sell product, because our kids are seeing, the research says, and you may find this hard to believe, but I think if you pay attention, you'll see that it's probably true. Kids see about 4 to 10,000 marketing messages a day. And when you
That's
think
insane.
about the sheer amount of screen time, we know as adults what we're getting hit with. And so, um, they're seeing a lot. They're never going to buy all those products. So therefore, the greatest power of marketing is to sell a worldview, a way of looking at the world and thinking about life. And we know, because of our desire to lead young people into an understanding of life that's biblically based, that they understand, theology and biblical anthropology, who they are as human beings. We want them to do everything out of the foundation of a biblical world and life view, but marketing sells other worldviews. And I think the biggest thing is that marketing tends to tap into that hole in our soul that Blaise Pascal talked about, that can only be filled by God. Pascal called it a God-shaped vacuum, and it sucks all kinds of things in. Calvin talked about us being idol factories. I've heard Paul Tripp talk about, us being glory hogs, and the idolatry that we pursue and that we are prone to go after as our default setting. And so, I think that's what people need to understand, is there's a spiritual component to marketing, because it taps into needs, and it's the deepest need of our lives, and that is to be in a relationship with Christ, in a relationship with our Redeemer, and have that God-shaped vacuum filled by God himself. And so marketing, I think, just taps into that emptiness and keeps promising, 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 and never fulfilling, which marketers love, by the way, because now you sell more product, but it just taps into that. So there's that spiritual component to it that we need to be aware of. So I think marketing can be good if it brings glory to God, if it's marked by clarity and integrity and excellence, and honesty. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
honesty, I mean, that's key. As you said, there's so much manipulation that goes on with marketing, and I like how you just said there's this spiritual approach to marketing, and you might have been one of the first that I heard really just kind of say this explicitly, of just marketers know the human heart better than most of us do. And so maybe unpack that thought just a little bit for us.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard marketers referred to as product evangelists,
Mm,
and that is they're trying to sell and tap into that emptiness. And one of the things that we push for here at CPYU is for people who minister to kids, again, whether it's parents, youth workers, or whatever, we need to see ourselves as cross-cultural missionaries. And so we need that cross-cultural missionary training, like those who are sent out from our churches to other nations and continents and cultures. It's the same thing for us. And marketers, they know kids. They are on the cutting edge. And so there's a lot that we can learn from marketers about what's driving our kids, about the basic needs of our kids, about the ways that our kids are exhibiting these holes in the soul that they have, and how they're trying to fill their ultimate desire for God with other things. But boy, the manipulation that takes place is just huge. I'll just share this, that several years ago, and I can't remember how long ago it was. It may have been 20 years ago now. I was fortunate enough to have an institution of higher education send me to a marketing conference down in Orlando at the Disney property called Kid Power.
Mm.
I don't know if that conference still goes on or not, but that was a conference where people would come together who want to market to children. This is preteens, and this is really from birth on. And I heard all kinds of research. I was a fly on the wall. There were about 400 people there from companies such as the NFL, Leapfrog. I remember John Deere was there. You take companies like, why would they market to kids?
Mm.
But they are working to learn how to develop brand loyalty and manipulate and capture the minds and the hearts of kids from birth on. And I was stunned, as a fly on the wall to hear what some of this research is pulling out and how they're using it, to manipulate kids. I mean, I just think now, John, with what's going on with a lot of these hearings that are happening now regarding social media and the
Mhm.
addictive nature of social media, it's the same sort of thing that these companies, whether they say it or not, are actually, capturing minds and hearts, literally capturing them by tapping into the good way that God has made us as integrated beings, both with our desires and with the chemicals in our brains and all of that working together, manipulating that in ways that I think lead us away from the Lord, typically, and into idolatry, trying to
Right.
find meaning and purpose and satisfaction in life and other things. And it's not just kids, it's adults as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm curious too. I mean, you talked about as, which is crazy to think of that conference of just from birth going after children, trying to, and as you said, kind of have some brand loyalty, get some children to buy into a certain brand at a young age so they can soon just keep them for life. But are there other reasons why that they're pursuing children
Yeah, yeah.
after
I
young age?
actually have kept a list over the years, and I printed it out this morning so that I could refer to it, anticipating you might ask me that question. So, I one of the questions that I put to parents when I'm speaking to them about marketing is, you may wonder why children and teens are being targeted, and so here are 5 reasons that, and this is not exhaustive, but these are the 5 reasons that I think we need to really be aware of just from the start. First is there's lots of them. We know that, right? There are right now almost 73 million children and teenagers under the age of 18 in the United States. So they are a huge marketing segment. And segmented marketing really started after World War II when the GIs came back. There was a baby boom, of which I'm a part of. I'm not a result of a GI coming back, but the GIs came home. We had won the war. There was a baby boom and then unprecedented economic growth. And so companies saw that they could segment the different age groups and target marketing to them. So I actually grew up in a world where, Saturday morning cartoons and after school television was used to really tap into me and get me to pester my parents about and nag them about buying different things that I saw marketed. So that's the first thing. There's a lot of them. Secondly, they have a lot of what's called direct spending power. This is the money that they have themselves. They choose to spend this money in the way they choose to spend it, buying what they want to buy. Included in this is the money that they've earned and the money that's been given to them by their parents. And we know that there is a lot of money being given to them by their parents, and a lot of it is just, nagging them. And that's the third reason. Children and teens exert tremendous spending influence on their parents. And anybody who has kids knows all about this. Again, it's called the nag factor or pester power and in the marketing world, and that's what they work to tap into. One of the things that I noticed years ago was I picked up, back when magazines were a big thing, John, I picked up a copy of Sports Illustrated for Kids. I don't even know if it's still in print or not. And I was just reading through it, looking at the marketing. And when I turned to the back page, the back cover, there was a full page ad for a minivan. Now, Sports Illustrated for Kids is really directed towards primarily boys at the time, ages 12 and under. Why would there be an ad for a minivan in Sports Illustrated for Kids?
Right.
Because they know the kids see this stuff and then pester and nag their parents. And there was actual data, I think it was like between 40 and 50% of car purchases made by parents of children, 40 to 50% of those car purchases, the kind of car that was purchased was influenced by, the influence of the children on their parents in terms of directly saying, hey, this is what we need and what we want. I
Wow.
think, too, marketers want to develop brand loyalty. If they get them at a young age, they have them for life. And we know there's a lot of competing brands out there. And then they're targeted because of where they're at developmentally. Children are far more vulnerable than adults. We know that little children believe anything an adult says, and they believe then what marketers and the ads tell them. And when you get them young, you have them for life. Kids who are older, adolescents, they're going through this period of asking questions like, who am I, which is identity formation, what do I believe, which is worldview formation, and where do I belong, which is relational formation. And the ads all tap into those questions, whether kids are conscious that they're asking those or not, and providing answers and saying, I can help you know who you are. Use this product and you will fit in with your friends. Or, you have to believe that this thing is going to make your life better. So kids are really, really impressionable. And I remember bugging my parents when I was a little child for certain things that I saw advertised on television. I think of one ad in particular, I think it was PF Flyers, some sneakers that are actually coming back. I saw them advertised the other day on social media, but they were told they would make you run faster and jump higher. Nothing was going to help me run any faster or jump any higher, but I believed that was the case. And I remember when I got a pair, I came home, put them on, and started running back and forth in the kitchen, trying to see if this was actually true and trying to jump. But I believed that, right? So kids are vulnerable. So those are 5 reasons why our children and teens are targeted.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking too, as we're talking about this, I think of when we had Paul Loosemore on to talk about dopamine and just saying how biblical anthropology is a key foundational understanding to thinking about dopamine. And so much of, what you said earlier and all of this is just kind of thinking of our anthropology, how we're made and the vulnerabilities and all of those things. I'm wondering too, as you said, referencing your book earlier, Youth Culture 101, and how it has to be updated all the time. Just how I know you've seen a lot change through the years, but hearing that, 4 to 10,000 images a day, I'm thinking, okay, that sounds insane. That's how and almost
Yeah.
I don't know how that's possible. But then I think of, well, the average amount of screen time teens are getting, and 9+ hours for many. Yeah, sure, they're scrolling past all of that, but I'm just curious, kind of some of the big changes you've seen now with social media playing a part in, marketing all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
24/7.
Yeah, I've thought about that. And I was actually thinking about that this morning before I got on here with you. And, when you think about marketing techniques and marketing research that's being done, I think, when I was growing up, it was tapping into all the market research, everything tapped into the human condition. And when I say human, the large bucket of humanity. And marketers were getting to know us behaviorally as a group. Human beings, marketers were getting to know us in terms of developmentally, where we were at, the difference between children, younger teens, teenagers, young adults, so forth and so on. So we were lumped in buckets. I think what's changed is with social media and all the data mining and facial recognition and the different areas where people can get at us, it's gone from being the big bucket of humanity to individual human beings, where marketing is targeted specifically to me because of what I've seen before, what I've searched for before, what the algorithms have said I've looked for, and now just dumping more and more of that to me. And so I think this is where parents need to wake up and realize it's not just your kids being marketed to as part of a group. Your kids are being marketed to as an individual based on their preferences and their desires. And marketers have data and knowledge about your kids that you may not even have yourself. And so where they go when they're on social media, the things that they click on when they're on social media, it's the same for us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things you like, Alexa, Or, some of these, we don't have one in our house. I don't want it there because it's listening to me all
Always
the
listening.
time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got to understand that my phone is listening to me all the time. And if you have a smart television, they're mining data there in terms of what you're watching, what you're pausing on, what you're clicking on, what your choices are, and they will continue to send you more and more of what you're looking for. So I'll give you one example. This is from a few years ago, and this is for adults, right? I can't remember what the particular retailer was, but it was a woman's clothing retailer that are in a lot of the malls that people would be familiar with. And you could download their app. And when you walked in the store, there were no price tags in particular on the different items. You were told to turn your app on, and then when you went to a particular item, you would scan it and it would give you the price. And there could be 10 women who go into that store, turn that app on, and scan that code for that particular item and get 10 different prices. And the reason for that was they had different what the app had learned about them, what the marketers had learned about them, and knowing what it was that would push their buttons, to pay whatever it was they put out there. So they knew preferences, they knew spending habits. I believe they probably knew economics as well. And it's tailored, individualized marketing, which is extremely manipulative. And I don't even know that we know that this is happening. And that's what is, a real struggle. I was thinking about this. I'm German. And so I always say, I don't know why I made that face when I said that, but I've always wondered, like, my great-grandparents and my great-great-grandparents who came over from Germany, what did they think about what was happening in Germany during World War II? And how did Germans, who were really recognized as some of the smartest, most advanced people at the time in terms of a civilization, how were they so easily manipulated into following Hitler? And there's this great quote. I share this whenever I talk about marketing. And when I say great, that's what I mean, insightful. From Joseph Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister for Hitler. And he said this is the secret of propaganda. Those who are to be persuaded by it should be completely immersed in the ideas of the propaganda without even noticing that they are immersed in it. That's pretty powerful. And that explains a lot about what happened in Nazi Germany. And I think the same, the same techniques, it's at the foundation of so much of marketing right now that we've been in this marketing soup for so long that we don't even recognize it. And we don't recognize when we're being marketed to and how it's happening.
Hey there, this is Brent Corbin, Executive Director for RYM. Thank you so much for joining us on this season of the RYM podcast as we explore the effects of the God-given gift of dopamine on all of our lives in this technological age. Our podcast is just part of our array of resources which we provide to the church and parents in the church and anyone seeking to invest in the lives of young people. So head over to rym.org/resources to see what we have for you there. And our resources are themselves just a part of our array of offerings for the church. We also offer summer youth conferences. This summer we will have 9 conferences from coast to coast where churches can bring their youth students and youth groups, and they can learn alongside one another with over 15 hours of biblical instruction, interaction, as well as some serious fun along the way. We even have some openings this summer, so head over to rym.org/conferences to learn more about those. And if you or someone you know is looking to develop in your skills and understanding of how to think critically and effectively about how to minister to and care for youth, then you'll want to check out our RYM training initiatives to see if there's something there for you. So whether you're brand new in youth ministry or you've been in the game a long time as a minister or as a parent or a volunteer, we suspect there will be many ways for you to benefit from our decades of combined wisdom and experience in this space. So head over to rym.org/training to learn more there. As you've heard, our website is full of information that we hope is useful for you and for your church. So head over to rym.org, and if you'll scroll down to the bottom of that homepage and sign up for one of our newsletters that's applicable to you, you'll stay up to date on the latest of all that we have to offer. Now back to the show.
And I know too, as I'm hearing some of this, and I'm thinking of parents listening and our children being vulnerable, and so much marketing is coming after our children. I want to say I know we're going to get into some points at the end that you give some takeaways for parents. I know you've mentioned something called the pitch,
Yes.
and that's something I'd love for you to just kind of unpack a little bit for us, explain what that is, and
Yeah.
just
So
how it's used.
this is kind of foundational. This guy, Hugh Rank, and I'll just show you this book here. Hugh Rank wrote this, The Pitch, back in 1982, and it is subtitled A Simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Way to Understand the Basic Pattern of Persuasion in Advertising. And I think what Hugh Rank was trying to do, it's subtitled How to Analyze Ads. He was trying to help us understand how we're being manipulated. Here's what's interesting. I just noticed this. I never knew this before. The publisher is the Counter Propaganda Press. The Counter Propaganda Press, which is really interesting. So, and quite telling. So he lays this out, and let me read this to you. So I'm going to, and John, stop me if you have any questions on any of this. But he lays out what's known, the strategy known as the pitch. And it's this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 way to understand the basic pattern of persuasion in advertising. And he says all ads are what he calls, and I quote, units of persuasion, designed to persuade a target audience to respond in some way, to believe something, or to do something. Marketers are benefit promisers who promise a benefit to those of us human beings who are benefit seekers. That's all of us, including our kids. And if the ad works, the people who've made it get the advantage of profit, and the benefit seekers will receive some kind of pleasure. There's the dopamine, right?
Mhm.
And so they weren't even talking about dopamine at that point,
Sure.
but they knew something was going on. And even if it's only for a short period of time, the pleasure, right? As we all know is the case. So the marketers promise benefits through this 5-step pitch process. Here's number 1, attention getting. That's the first step in the pitch. The ad is created in position to be noticed by the benefit seeker. The ad is saying hello, catching the eyes and ears and hoping to catch their heart. The second step is what's called confidence building. The ad gains the trust of the benefit seeker by communicating things like expertise, sincerity, and a sense that the advertiser is on the same side as the benefit seeker. The ad is saying, trust me. All right, so there's hello, then there's trust me. Third step is desire stimulation. This is where the ad says you need this product or this service. Benefit promisers tap into 4 types of desires that benefit seekers have, and these are especially strong in our children and teens. So let me read to you what these benefits are that they tap into, and they could do one or more. First one is a desire for protection. If we want to have something good, we want to protect it and keep it, like a pet, a happy family, a nice vehicle, a significant other. Second is a desire for relief. If there's something bad in our lives, we want to get rid of it. So loneliness, acne, out-of-style clothes, anxieties, that sort of thing. The third one that they tap into, the third desire that's strong, is a desire for acquisition. If there's something we don't have that we want to acquire it. And just think about how social media plays into that with peer pressure when our kids see other people having all these things and being portrayed as happy when they have them.
Sure.
And so that's that desire for acquisition. And lastly, a desire for prevention. If there's something bad that we don't have, we want to avoid it. So if we don't have loneliness, if we don't have acne, if we don't have out-of-style clothes, we want to prevent. So it's not fixing, but it's making sure we don't have to get to the point of fixing. And this was interesting. I found this quote. This was from years ago. I don't know I guess Revlon Cosmetics are still out there, but Charles Revson of Revlon Cosmetics once famously said, "In the factory, we make the product. In the store, we sell hope." In the factory, we make the product. And so there's that spiritual nature right there. So we tap in. All right. So that's the third step, summary, the third step. So we've got attention getting, confidence building, desire stimulation. Then the fourth step is urgency stressing. That's the fourth step in the pitch, where the ad says things like hurry up, act now before it's too late, and don't wait. And by the way, our kids, I think all of us, um, we have been lulled into a sense of avoiding delayed gratification, not even considering delayed gratification. We want it. We want it now. And then finally, the fifth step in the pitch is response seeking, and an effective ad must provoke a response, and the response is to sell something. In this step, the benefit promiser is telling the benefit seeker to buy. Now, all that said, John, and I know you may have some response to this, there is a quote I want to share with you that I heard firsthand a few years ago that kind of captures a lot of that. So this was when I was up in Canada, and I was up there. I'd been asked to come up to be on one of these Christian television networks to talk about probably my youth culture book. And there were multiple guests on there. And the guest before me was a woman who she was peddling a book. She had a book she had written, kind of a business type book or a self-help book that Christians were grabbing onto. She was also a singer. So she sang and she talked about her book. And then when she went over and she sat down with the host, he said this, I see that before you got into writing the book, and I see that before you got into singing, you were working with an advertising agency out of Chicago, and you were the person in charge there of the McDonald's fast food advertising account. And he asked this question, and I wrote down the question afterwards. I went to watch the show, wrote down the question, and wrote down her answer. He was asked this, how do you sell a hamburger in today's world? Here was her answer, unapologetic. She says, we've stolen a page from Satan's book. Find a point of weakness and lust in every man, woman, and child, and target that weakness to make them want to buy a product. So there's that spiritual element as well. And again, I'm going to say marketing's not evil, but how we do it, it is manipulation in so many ways. Rather than just telling someone, here, this is available, we get it. I mean, that pitch is used to get us to go beyond just seeing that it's available to, push the buttons in our brains and in our hearts, in our minds to get us to want to buy things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much there. And, as you were just talking about getting after our brains, and, we've mentioned dopamine. And I know you've talked about specific dopamine strategies that marketers use. I'd love for you just to kind of talk about some of those, one of those, any that kind of come to mind.
Yeah.
And again, everything we're saying is related to dopamine.
And this is actually something that I'm just learning about now. So this is kind of fresh in my mind, and we've got to understand that a lot of this is fairly new just because of the brain science and the imaging that's coming and what we're learning about the human brain and the way God made it. And I think that's what we need to understand. It's tapping into how God made our brains and manipulating, derailing in some ways. So let me give you 6 here that I've written down. These are dopamine marketing techniques, and marketers will say these are the core dopamine marketing techniques, and I'm sure there's more. Number 1 is gamification and rewards. So if I set this up with loyalty programs, I mean, we all have this, right? At the gas pump, loyalty programs. At the grocery store, loyalty programs. Progress bars, airlines do this. Here's how far you are away from your, your status. I just saw that the other day. I'll never reach it. I don't fly enough to reach where they're trying to get me beyond the one status I'm in, from gold to platinum. Badges, they make consumers feel they're winning. They trigger the dopamine, and all this reinforces repeat behavior. So you use things like games that draw you in. Secondly is instant gratification. So when you see a flash sale, oh man, I get these all the time in my junk email, limited time offers, instant notifications, pop-ups, creating these immediate pleasure responses. Third is variable rewards and anticipation. Similar to slot machines, unpredictable rewards, surprise, personalized discounts you weren't expecting, and these create even stronger dopamine spikes in the brain than consistent rewards. So kind of that surprise element. Fourth would be social proof and validation. Social media algorithms, which encourage posting that have likes and comments, providing that immediate social validation and a dopamine hit. We know how that works for kids. Social capital. When I put something up, I feel rewarded when people interact with it. Give me the thumbs up or make a positive comment. Fifth is visuals and storytelling, using high-quality visuals, bright colors, emotionally resonant stories, stimulate engagement in pleasure centers. TV ads do this well. I'm always surprised. Well, not surprised, but I pay attention next time you see this rash of advertisements we see every single night for drugs, for this, that, and the other thing. At the end, you hear about all the side effects, which you're going, why would I ever use that? But in the story that's told, you can see there's a problem, it's resolved, and the person who maybe had a blank look on their face and a rash on their arm now is smiling and enjoying life. And so there's it works, right? I'm going to get that. And then lastly, surprise and delight, unexpected perks, surprise gift or personalized message, that creates intense positive reinforcement and brand loyalty. So, making you feel like, and this is that individualized stuff, making you feel like they know you, and they do know you, but they don't know you, right? But making you feel like they're on, your side, and they do in fact know you. No, they know what pushes your buttons. They don't know you.
Yeah. And, it's, there's good things about AI. There's ways in which we use AI all the time. I mean, soft AI and then other versions, but you do think of, now that AI is getting more and more advanced, just adding this into this sphere of the culture of marketing and consumerism it's kind of like, we don't stand a chance. I mean, already with some of the things you're saying, instant gratification, I think how often I just see something and go on Amazon and boom, get it. And I know I'll get it tomorrow or sooner, and so.
And that makes it so easy, right? We just do it from our couch.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We don't have to invest any time or gas money to get there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And, we're adults talking about this. We just think of the world in which our children are growing up in, where they don't know any different at all. I mean, us knowing there were times we had to wait days, weeks before something would come in for the mail, or going to the store and it being sold out and you have to call an order or something along those lines. Well, too, I know we'll be wrapping this up before too long. I know you had some specific, just kind of parents guide. I think, did you call them the Simple Seven? Is that what it's called?
Some strategies, that being one of them. So I actually wrote down 5 strategies, John, that I thought it might be helpful to communicate to the parents. Let me go through 4 of them rather quickly, and then I'll explain that one you're referring to, which would be a 5th, which is an actual tool that you can use in your home to get your kids thinking this way. I think the first thing for parents is to realize that in Ephesians 6:4, we're told to bring our children up in the nurture and admonition, the discipline of the Lord. Christian nurture is so important. They cannot discern truth from lies if they don't know the truth. And we need to move them into, or nurture them into, a need to see that they need to worship God, but understand that their default setting is idolatry, and begin to know their hearts, right? So leading them deeper in the faith. And you can only do that, moms and dads, if you're doing that in your own life. Secondly is to help them see and recognize that yearning that's inside. The cause of that is sin. We live in a broken world. The effect is that God-shaped vacuum that Blaise Pascal talks about that can only be filled by Christ. That's the remedy. But even when that's filled by Christ, there's still this, the vestiges of our sin and the sin nature we struggle with. And so even as Christians, we deal with this. And one of the things I've realized is that the emptier I get when I'm not filling my well with God's word and I'm not walking well with the Lord, the more susceptible I become to marketing and the lies that marketing tells me about how this thing will fulfill my life. I think the third thing then, after talking about their yearning, is to help them find their value and identity in God's eyes as divine image bearers and adopted sons and daughters of God, and really affirm their value and their identity so that they are less prone to go looking for that elsewhere. The culture is just hammering them with these messages that they're less than, and the products are saying we can make you more than. And so do that. The fourth thing is help them to see when, where, and how they're being marketed to. So one of my youngest son, Nate, who I remember we kind of started doing this with the youngest one. We got into this a little bit late, but I had him start to play when we would watch television, spot the lie in an ad or spot the ad. And one of the things was product placement, where he would say, "Oh, that company paid to have that in there, right?" We were just watching the other night, Lisa and I, a rerun of Everybody Loves Raymond. And this was back in, the 1990s. And we live here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And there on the table, as Deborah was trying to assuage get the dopamine hits because of her depression about something, she's got a half gallon of ice cream and she's got a spoon and she's eating out of it. And it's facing the camera. And the brand is Turkey Hill Ice Cream, which is native to Lancaster County here.
Okay.
They paid to have that in here. So spot that. And then lastly, and this is something, John, you can share a link to this. This is a free download on our site, cpyu.org, or people can go and just search for it. We've
we'll
put together. What's that?
I said, I want to say we'll put this in the show notes.
Great.
For those
Thank
who are
you.
listening. But,
Yeah, it's these, we call it the Simple 7 ad filtering questions, and it's a handout where youth workers can do this with their students. You bring the advertisements in, and you go through these 7 steps questions. What product is the ad selling? What besides the product does the ad sell in terms of ideas, lifestyle, worldview? What's the bait, the hook, and the promise? Complete this sentence. This ad tells me use this product, and then this will happen. Does the ad tell the truth? What truth? How? Does the ad tell lies? What and how? And how does this ad and its messages agree or disagree with God's truth, order, and design for his world? And what does that mean, for me? So, and then we have additional questions on the back if you want to go deeper. But there have been youth workers who have taken this, and rather than prepare any talks for a weekend retreat, they've just had the kids bring their social media, they brought some ads, and they sit in groups and they work through this. And it's a skill that becomes second nature, so that when you watch ads, you're always kind of on the edge of your seat going, what are they trying to do to me? What are they trying to convince me of? And I'm telling you, it's transformative, because that's sort of the way I look at ads now. That doesn't mean that I'm not susceptible to the techniques, but because they're always trying new ways to do this. But boy, it just sucks us in, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just talking about that Simple 7, I know we've had you speak at some of our conferences and other things, and we've done things like that. Like watch, an ad or something, and then have youth leaders kind of spread out and use the Simple 7 and kind of talk through it. And like you said, I've known youth leaders who've done it with students. And as I'm thinking of parents hearing this, as well as youth leaders using something like this, sometimes it seems like, oh, that's going to take a lot of work. It's very involved, but it's really kind of just a natural way in which to lead a conversation. And before you know it, you do that enough times with your children, and they just automatically start thinking like this. And it's just kind of becomes second nature. And, as you said, that they're spotting the lie, but then also kind of in this conversation too, understanding a bit more about the chemicals in their brain and the pleasure that they're seeking and how that connects to the longing in their heart and all of those things. So it's really, a way to just go back to that word, having a biblical anthropology, understanding who we are, who God is. And it's just kind of getting through it through the category of marketing, consumerism. Well, this is all really helpful. Any final thoughts as we're drawing this to a close?
Well, I think the Lord calls us, right, we're called to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength. And this is one of the ways that we learn how to think Christianly. We don't turn our brains off. I mean, one of the criticisms of the evangelical church today, and I think it's well-deserved, is that we don't think. We're not thinking deeply. We're not growing in sanctification with our minds. And so discipleship in the mind is important, and this is certainly part of it, and something, because it's so big in our world, and Jesus is Lord and sovereign over all, we have to allow him to be sovereign and Lord over our lives, including the marketing and the way the marketing manipulates us or influences us. And so I think that's just a really important thing for parents to grapple with. Parents are busy. I get it. And that's one of the things marketers know. And they're going to tap into that. And I think we need to drop a lot of stuff so that we can focus more on these types of things, because we only have a limited number of years with our kids, and this is only going to get more intense. I think you mentioned AI. Who knows? Who knows where that's going, right? It's pretty amazing stuff and pretty frightening stuff, I think. But yeah, so nurture your kids now in this.
Yeah, and well, just to that point on busyness, I mean, we've been talking about that for years now. There's more literature that's come out on that, but just as my children, 5 children, have grown, and there's things we just need to say no to, and just, hey, we're going to stay at home tonight, even if it's just sharing a meal together, to the conversations that come up from that. I mean, it is. Yeah, we need to be intentional, and time is precious, and we only get a finite amount of it. So, well, just thanks for all your research on this, the years of you thinking about this, lecturing on this, writing on this, and want to continue to point people back to CPYU, and links will be in the show notes, and specifically that PDF of the Simple Seven. But thanks for all that you're doing.
Thanks, John, and it's always a pleasure to chat with you. I love it, and thanks for what RYM's doing.
Wake up and break yourself out of here. Don't be one of the cold souls who disappear. Stop believing and telling the lie. Why don't you look your life in the eye?
Thanks for listening to the RYM podcast and this season of the Dopamine Delusion. Special thanks to the Arcadian Wild for the use of their song Dopamine, and to our editors Joe Deegan and Virginia Stroud. Be sure and check out the show notes for links, resources, or books mentioned in today's episode. If today's topic resonated with you, please take the time to share this episode with a friend who might find it beneficial. For more information about our student conferences, youth leader training, and other resources, be sure to visit rym.org. See you next week for another episode of the Dopamine Delusion.